Thanks for joining us here on Fox 9 All Day. I am Courtney Godfrey. We've got several things that we are following this morning, including a city council committee meeting that has a lot of newsworthy items on the agenda. But right now, we are listening in to the Minnesota Legislative Auditor, who's giving a presentation at the State Senate building right now. We want to take a live listen in.
And Social Security Administration data, as I described on the previous slide. There were fewer than about 200 records for which we disagreed with the status determination or did not see evidence that the determination was accurate. I'll note that we didn't observe any important differences by county or region. Here, this is statewide. Exhibit 2.4 in our report and the surrounding text provide some more examples about why the sorts of issues that we saw, but I'll note that the possible errors we observed kind of went both ways. We saw some voter statuses that were activated without evidence that the individual had passed identity verification. And on the flip side, we saw some other voter registration records that were initially challenged appropriately because the person failed the identity verification, but then they were submitted through the process again, perhaps after adjusting their information, and they passed, but then they were not reactivated as they should have been. So those 200 records we found questionable, kind of had a couple of different issues going on. I would like to now switch gears to residency verification. And like the identity verification process, it starts with a new application that the county enters into SVRS to create a voter registration record. SVRS automatically sends a postal verification card, PVC. They send a PVC to the applicant, and this is a notice indicating the voter's name, address, precinct, and polling place. Postal verification cards are non-forwardable. The U.S. Postal Service must return the notice to the county if it cannot be delivered as addressed. When a notice is returned, the county challenges the record as with a reason of postal return. If, on the other hand, the PVC is delivered successfully to the applicant, the residency is considered verified and the voter status remains active. Our analysis of the residency verification process used a different subset of those 211,000 records. AVR folks are back in, but there's only 191,000 records in this set because individuals who are not yet active, that being pending 16 and 17-year-olds who pre-registered, as well as people who registered via AVR and still have the opportunity to opt out, they are not supposed to receive their PVC until their record becomes active. And we found here that 99% of the applications processed during this time period passed the residency verification process. And page 33 of the report has a table just like the one we were looking at for identity verification that breaks down them by method, the different passage rates. As we did for identity verification, we analyzed SVRS transactions data to determine the extent to which counties accurately assigned voter statuses as the result of residency verification process. We found that 99% of the applications were processed correctly. The vast majority of these applications did not require the county to make a decision. The PVC was delivered and the voter remained active without the county taking action. For 1% of records, we questioned the status determination. And again, we did not see patterns by county or region. These 2,400 cases were statewide. I'll offer a couple of examples, but you can see in 2.8, the exhibit 2.8, and the surrounding text, other examples of why somebody might have not, some of the issues that we saw the counties having with the verification process. So we observed voters challenged for postal returns without documentation that a postal return postal return date in SVRS. However, we cannot know whether the county's determination was accurate because the use of the SVRS form on which a county would record the date of a postal return is currently optional. So it is quite possible that someone received a returned PVC and challenged, and it was appropriate with it because they didn't have to fill out that form. We just can't know because the documentation is not there. On the flip, we also saw some cases on the reverse side. We saw cases of documented postal returns in this system for which the county did not appear to challenge the record. And finally, we saw cases where there did not appear to be a PVC sent when we thought that it should have. All right. I'm going to not exactly shift gears, but go sort of a different direction with residency verification. Statutes require that OSS submit an annual report to the legislature on the PVCs that were sent to election day registrants and were returned. This report must include, broken out by county, the number of notices returned as undeliverable, the reasons they were returned if the county could determine them, and the total number of individuals for whom the county does not receive or obtain satisfactory proof of an individual's eligibility to vote. We found that the report that OSS produces meets these requirements. However, we think that the report offers limited value for a couple of reasons. We think that the numbers reported under the category of no satisfactory proof of eligibility could easily be misinterpreted. This report provides the number of individuals for whom counties did not receive proof of eligibility through the postal verification process. This report should not be used to make broader statements about eligibility. Also, this report just does not include the number of election day registrants or per county or the number of PVCs sent, which makes it difficult to interpret the scope and scale of the numbers that are presented in the report. We recommend that the legislature clarify the purpose and requirements of post-election reporting on returned PVCs. The legislature should consider whether the current format provides the information they need. If the intent of the report is to examine voter eligibility broadly, this report shows only a small piece of the puzzle. OSS may be able to provide different information to the legislature about voter eligibility questions. All right, I'm now going to shift gears. We've been talking about application processing, but
all right, you have been listening to the legislative auditor presenting to a state Senate committee about voter registration. That program started at noon, and we'll continue to listen into it and dip into it as needed. We are also keeping an eye on the Minneapolis City Council, where today the Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee is meeting. There's several items on the agenda that we are interested in, including one that they've just started talking about now, and that is a pilot program that would put drones in place as first responders. Let's take a listen in.
Health and Safety and Equity Committee. For the record, my name is Andy Skugman. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Office of Community Safety here in the city of Minneapolis. Thank you for the opportunity to present today on a proposed Drones as First Responder pilot project. At its core, drones as first responders, or DFR, we believe is a fairly simple concept. When certain 911 calls are received, a drone can launch immediately, arrive ahead of first responders, and provide live video so 911 dispatchers, officers, firefighters, EMS personnel have a better understanding of what's happening before they arrive or if they should go at all. Today's hearing is about exploring whether using technology in this manner has a place in the city of Minneapolis, not deciding that it does. Over the past year or so, the Office of Community Safety and MPD have worked with multiple vendors. We've worked with city departments. We've reviewed calls for service data. We've evaluated available technology and studied how similar programs are operating in communities across the metro area, across the state, and across the country. I think it's important to thank Councilmember Vita for bringing forward a legislative directive this spring that helped move this conversation forward and created the opportunity for today's public discussion. So thank you. Public safety is changing rapidly, and technology is becoming an increasingly important tool for helping cities respond more efficiently, more safely, and with better information. Drones are not a replacement for police officers, for firefighters, for EMS personnel, or other first responders. They're simply a tool that helps ensure the right resources are sent to the right call at the right time. In some cases, the information gathered, we believe, may confirm that an immediate police, fire, or EMS response is needed. In other situations, it may show that a different response is more appropriate, such as dispatching the behavioral crisis response team or another non-sworn resources. And in some instances, the drone may determine that the situation has changed or been resolved before responders arrive, allowing those resources to remain available for other emergencies across the city. Minneapolis, like many cities across the country, continues to face staffing challenges. If technology can help us improve efficiency, enhance safety, and provide better service to residents, we believe it's worth exploring. Lastly, I'll add that other departments in the city have told you, and they did testify before this committee in the past, that they too could use drones for a variety of regulatory functions. But today we really do want to focus on how MPD would like to use the technology. So with that, I'll turn things over to the Deputy Chief of Patrol for Minneapolis Police, Tom Campbell.
Welcome, and if we can make sure that we're moving the slides so the public can see what's happening, if you're on the topic.
Good afternoon, Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Stevenson, and council members. My name is Thomas Campbell, and I am the Deputy Chief of Patrol and the Special Operations Division. Part of my duties is to oversee the MPD drone unit. I brought with me the Special Operations Division Commander John Syseth and Sergeant Roger Mua, who runs the day-to-day drone operations for the Minneapolis Police Department today. I also have Assistant Director of the Emergency Communications Center, Leticia Cardenas, with me, who will be speaking later during this presentation. Today, just like the last directive time we were here in May, I'm very excited to be giving you a presentation on the Drones as First Responder 75-day no-cost pilot project. The project has immediate benefits to Minneapolis 911, police, and fire response. It's important to note MPD Now uses drones since 2022. We currently have 12 pilots with their Part 107 licenses, which allow them to fly drones in the city. Our current fleet to date, we have 12 exterior drones, and we have 17 interior drones that we use. Since the fall of 2022 till today, these numbers are a little higher from when this was created, but today we have 640 total missions, and that would include patrol responses already and some responses under the Special Operations Division. And currently, we do fly our drones from squad trunks or from the drone command vehicle if it is asked to come out to a scene. What is Drones as First Responder? DFR for short. It's the proactive use of drones to immediately respond to a 911 call for service that comes into dispatch. Upon arrival, that live video is streamed back to dispatch to where the pilots will be seated. It'll provide that real-time situational awareness to that drone pilot. That in turn, the first responders will be able to see in real time. I'll say the first responder will be able to see in real time what is happening on scene. They can relay that information to officers that are dispatched out there to give them a more informed response or the possibility of clearing that call later on without even having a police squad response to a scene. The proposed DFR pilot project, as stated, it's a free 75-day trial period conducted in the 4th Precinct alone. That is driven by data. I'll be showing that to you here in a few minutes. This is a proposed partnership with Skydio. Skydio is the largest drone manufacturer in the United States today. They currently work with 5 agencies in Minnesota: St. Paul, Duluth, Rochester, Minnetonka, and Brooklyn Park. It's also important to note that they work with 236 other agencies nationwide, and 24 of them are part of the Major City Chiefs Association. The purpose of the DFR pilot project, again, we're trying to collect data to see if the drones as first responder can help reduce response time to calls for service. Could we have cleared certain low-level calls for service without even having to dispatch a squad car out there? We also want to talk to
All right.
officers,
You have
survey
been
officers,
listening
see
to,
if they feel that
a
this
committee
increases
meeting
their.
at the city of Minneapolis, where they are looking at investing in drones as first responders. This is a presentation they're giving where they said that the Minneapolis police already have had drones since 2022, so far involved in 640 missions with no complaints thus far. So they're making the case for using drones as part of their first responder duties. We are also listening in to the Minnesota Legislative Auditor, who is presenting today about a effort, the voter registration program evaluation. Currently, they are discussing how counties can improve their voter registration process. Let's take a listen in.
OSS explained that updating an address or a name is essentially re-registering, and that as such, they do not inactivate the voters until they have neither voted nor re-registered for 4 years. And I apologize that I forgot to advance the slides while that was going on. All right, so we recommend that the legislature consider revising the criteria for inactivating voter records. Given the different sets of criteria and the recent changes in voter registration laws, such as ABR, it may be a good time for the legislature to reconsider requiring inactivation, reconsider its requirement to inactivate voter registration records based only on 4 years of not voting. Consistent with OSS's interpretation, it may not be practical or desirable to inactivate an individual who hasn't voted but who has updated their record, since updating their record proactively would indicate that they have a desire to be registered and perhaps an intent to vote in the future. Further, we think it's unclear to what extent the federal inactivation requirements apply to Minnesota, given that Minnesota is exempt from portions of that federal law. However, we think it is worth considering sending a notice to individuals prior to inactivating them nonetheless. All right, that is the end of my presentation today. I really thank you for your time and attention, and we'll be happy to take more questions as needed.
Are there more questions for the auditor's office, or should we move forward to hearing from the Secretary of State's office at this time? We'll do that. Thank you very much. You can tell that this is a topic of not only great interest, but great importance to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'd now welcome the Secretary of State, Mr. Steve Simon, and Paul Linnell, the Director of Elections. Welcome to the Legislative Audit Commission's meeting, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State. It's an honor to be here with the Legislative Audit Commission to discuss the OLA's report on Minnesota's voter registration system. I was a member of the LAC when I served in the Minnesota House, so I understand and I appreciate the care that all of you take in selecting topics for OLA reports and in reviewing the conclusions in those reports for potential legislative action. I want to thank the OLA for its professionalism, its thoroughness, its attention to detail, and its remarkable ability to get up to speed on a complex area of policy. At all times, the OLA had complete access to everything about our voter registration system, the data and the details of all kinds. Under Minnesota law, nothing was off limits to the OLA, and we tried to be as quick and as transparent as we could possibly be in fulfilling OLA requests. I also need to thank our staff at the Office of Secretary of State. This was, to put it mildly, a labor-intensive process. Our team spent literally hundreds of hours. When I first wrote this, I put in dozens, and someone on our staff corrected me. It was not dozens, it was literally hundreds of hours during a very busy time, finding specific data and answering specific questions requested by the OLA team, all the way up until last week, in fact. I don't need to remind this committee that the statewide primary election is only 34 days away, and that voters across the state literally have ballots in their hands right now. And of course, the general election, with its even greater responsibilities and pressures, is only 118 days away. So I'm grateful to the best Secretary of State team in America for shining once again. This is a positive report, which reflects positively on Minnesota's elections and which shows that our voter registration system is working well. We're pleased with the OLA's conclusions that, number one, our office provides appropriate procedures for counties regarding voter registration duties and responsibilities. Number two, our office provides the counties the data and tools they need to process voter registrations. Number three, that our office has made progress on the work of modernizing the statewide voter registration system, or SVRS, which is the federally mandated electronic system that operates as a central hub for county-based voter registration responsibilities. Overall, our mission at our office is to ensure that our elections are fair, accurate, honest, and secure. We don't pass the laws that govern our elections, but we do implement them along with local governments at the county, city, and township level. As the report repeatedly mentions, our office does not have legal authority to enforce county implementation of voter registration requirements, but we are partners with one another. We each have a role to play, and we each do our best to have each other's backs. So let me put that model into action right now. While the OLA report identifies areas for improvement by counties, I do ask members of this commission to remember that of Minnesota's 87 counties, only 9 counties, 9 out of 87, have full-time, year-round, elections-only departments. Now, the professionals who administer elections in all 87 counties are equally skilled and conscientious, but in the vast majority of counties, county election administrators have other duties in addition to elections, sometimes property tax collection, sometimes inspection requirements, and sometimes even ditch and drainage work. In the last few years, have seen significant turnover among county election administrators. In addition to that, counties and our office have implemented several large-scale legislative changes over the past couple of years. These are changes that we believe were beneficial to Minnesota voters and brought Minnesota up to speed with many of our peer states. But, as this report reflects, it did increase the workload for county and state officials, and it was a significant amount of change. I would say once-in-a-generation type of change in some areas, and that happened in a very short period of time. Overall, however, we're blessed in Minnesota to have a team of true professionals administering elections at the county level throughout the state. They really are excellent and effective partners for us, and more importantly, they really serve the voters very, very well. While this report does not seek to compare Minnesota to other states, I do want to note 2 things just for context. Number one, Minnesota's voter registration system is generally more complex and thorough than in other states because we update our lists more regularly than most other states. Part of this is due to the flexibility that we have as a state exempt from certain restrictions in the National Voter Registration Act. But part of this is also due to our participation with over half the states in the Electronic Registration Information Center, or ERIC. On a monthly basis, we securely exchange and compare data with other ERIC member states, U.S. Postal Service national change of address reports, and Social Security death data. Several list maintenance reports are generated from this data matching, which are used to update voter records and ensure that our voter rolls remain current and accurate. Number 2, Minnesota has recently enjoyed praise on a national level for the overall administration of our elections. Every 2 years, MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, issues what it calls its Election Performance Index, EPI, which bills itself as the premier assessment tool to evaluate election administration across the United States. It compares all 50 states on the basis of 19 criteria, including several related to the effectiveness of their voter registration systems. I'm pleased to tell you that in the 2026 report issued just a few weeks ago, Minnesota was the #1 state in America for overall election administration performance. I'll note that the top performing states have secretaries of state from both major political parties. Back to the topic at hand. Today's OLA report shows that Minnesota's voter registration system is fundamentally sound. While there is room for improvement, as always, the underlying system should inspire confidence. With that, I'm happy to introduce our Minnesota Elections Director, Paul Linnell, for further comments.
Welcome to the hearing. If you'd identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paul Linnell, and I'm the Director of Elections with the Office of the Minnesota Secretary of State.
Mr. Lindell.
Thank you. And thank you, Secretary Simon, and to the members of the Legislative Audit Commission for the opportunity to speak with you today, and to the Office of the Legislative Auditor for their work on this report. I'll now walk through the office's comments in response to each of the key recommendations that were included in the summary of the report. Quickly, before diving into the recommendations, I'd like to note that Minnesota has long been a leader with its voter registration system technology. In 1990, Minnesota was the first state to develop an interactive voter registration database that all counties could access using connected online terminals. We're also proud to have built a state-of-the-art updated statewide voter registration system, or SVRS, following the passage of the Help America Vote Act in 2002. As this report reflects, SVRS continues to work very well in providing the necessary tools for election officials to comply with the many state and federal legal requirements associated with voter registration and voter list maintenance. The previous 2018 voter registration audit included a recommendation to begin to modernize SVRS. And as noted in this report, there have been significant improvements to the system in support of this recommendation, primarily focusing on system performance, security, and compliance with new legal requirements. But there is still more work to be done to build out the next iteration of our state's voter registration system. The next phase of the modernization effort will emphasize updating system code, improving the user experience, and building in system enhancements to allow for work to be completed more efficiently and more effectively. OSS elections and IT staff have undertaken planning and requirements gathering over the past year and will soon be entering the next phase that will include convening user groups. We look forward to partnering with counties and other SVRS users to benefit from their insight and expertise to help shape the best possible voter registration system. Now to the recommendations. Beginning with the first recommendation that counties should process all voter registration applications within the timeframes that are established by law.
Excuse me for a second. I just want to draw members' attention that the recommendations are following the report. If you want to follow along with his comments and also look at the recommendations and their response. Mr. Linnell.
Yes, thank you. We agree with this first recommendation and are glad to see that the report found that our office provides procedures and guidance to counties consistent with this recommendation and that counties are largely complying with these deadlines. Our office provides detailed guidance around the 20-day registration cutoff before each election, reminding counties that all records received prior to the deadline must be processed to ensure that the rosters on election day are accurate and reflect all eligible voters registered before that cutoff. We will continue to work with counties to determine if there are any improvements that can be made to the system or to guidance documents to further ensure compliance with meeting this legal requirement. The next recommendations paired together state that counties should follow state law and OSS guidance when processing returned postal verification cards, or PVCs, and accurately document all returned PVCs in SVRS. Our office, again, agrees with these recommendations. And as the report notes, the OLA was able to verify compliance in more than 99% of the records that were reviewed. For the small portion that could not be verified as part of the OLA review, we believe that it is very likely many or even all of those were handled appropriately and in accordance with law. While SVRS does have a module for counties to input information on the processing of returned PVCs, the law does not require that counties document that rationale for processing a returned PVC, and much of that work does take place outside of the system with the physical cards as they are returned back to the office. It's also important to note that there are other pieces of returned election mail that are tracked separately and have their own unique processing requirements. For example, absentee or mail ballots. So because a county is not required to document the rationale in the system, and because there are other pieces of returned election mail that may result in a challenge to a voter record, we believe it's likely that the majority of those, less than 1%, were handled appropriately and in accordance with the law. However, we nevertheless agree with the recommendation that requiring documentation for returned PVCs, including the return date and reason for return, could aid in ensuring proper handling of those PVCs and future validation of those records. Our office will engage in a discussion with counties and legislative leaders about whether that should be legally required, and if so, what information should be required to be documented in the system. We'll also explore with counties what type of reporting form SVRS would help to improve PVC processing as recommended by the OLA, and we'll commit to developing such a report as part of our work to modernize SVRS. The fourth recommendation is
Excuse me, Senator Barr, did you have a question? Okay, on all of them. If members have questions on the response to the recommendations as we go along, please raise your hand and ask a question as we go along. Mr. Linnell.
Thank you. The fourth recommendation is that the legislature should clarify the purpose and requirements of post-election reporting of return PVCs. Our office agrees with this recommendation. Our office provides a significant amount of post-election data, both voluntarily and through reporting that's required by both state and federal law. In fact, the MIT Elections Performance Index mentioned by Secretary Simon, Minnesota received the highest possible score for data completeness, which is a measure of the data that the state provides as part of required federal post-election data reporting. The PVC report is currently a labor-intensive process for both the OSS and county staff. We agree that in its current form, the report meets the statutory requirements, but does not add much by way of value. We look to engaging with both counties and the legislature to attempt to clarify the purpose of the report and identify ways to improve its utility for those that wish to use it. The fifth recommendation states that counties should either update or document their rationale for not updating all voter registration records flagged by the OSS for a disqualifying condition. We agree with this recommendation, along with the corresponding recommendation that's in the body of the report that the OSS should modify monthly match reports on disqualifying conditions to align them with the format that is used for processing data from other agencies, such as the Department of Health reports on deceased individuals. As the recommendation notes, counties not taking action on a record is not necessarily indicative that they did not review the report and that the voter is not eligible. There are instances where further review of a potential match may indicate that the record should not have been challenged or it was a false positive in the matching process. However, the recommendation to document the rationale when a flagged record is not updated would be helpful to ensure that this information is captured in the system. This recommendation pairs well with the planned next phase of SVRS modernization. We will work closely with counties to determine the most efficient and effective way to improve these reports to ensure legal compliance and ease of administration. While the OSS is working with counties on the best way to improve these reports, we will also resend guidance to counties reminding them of the process currently required to identify potentially disqualifying conditions, and will emphasize the importance of these monthly match reports. The sixth recommendation is that counties should send a notice to all individuals whose rights to vote have been restored as required by Minnesota rules. Again, we agree with this recommendation, and we believe that this will be fully implemented by counties following rule changes that became effective June 1st, 2026, and the updated guidance recently distributed to counties by our office. We will also note that in addition to the notice sent from county elections officials, persons whose voting rights have been restored also receive notification about their voting rights from the Department of Corrections upon leaving incarceration. Recommendation 7 states that the legislature should consider revising the criteria for inactivating voter registration records. Our office agrees with this recommendation and believes that the legal requirements for inactivating voter registration records for a lack of voting-related activity.
You have been listening to the Minnesota Legislative Auditor's Office presenting at the state capitol today. Right now, the Secretary of State's office is following the Legislative Auditor with a presentation. This all has to do with the Legislative Audit Commission and a voter registration evaluation, which examined how the voter registration system works. So you were just hearing just a short while ago from Secretary of State Steve Simon, but we do want to go back to Minneapolis, where a committee, the Minneapolis City Council Committee on Public Health, Safety, and Equity is meeting. They are currently hearing public comment about a proposed drones as first responder pilot program. So council members are reviewing a proposed contract with a company called Skydio for a pilot program that would allow drones to be dispatched to certain emergency calls before officers arrive. Let's take a live listen in to that public comment.
And supporting an end to taxpayer dollars contributing on Israel's attacks. We also do not support the use of Skydio for drones as first responders program. It's important to note, our city is known throughout the world for the murder of George Floyd. Since his murder in 2020, the city of Minneapolis, including the mayor's office, has done virtually nothing to rein in killer cops. We cannot give this police department access to drones. Without community control of the police, we have no reason to believe that they wouldn't use them to police black and brown communities. It would be completely irresponsible for the Minneapolis City Council to give this police department any technology that could be used to surveil Minneapolis residents.
Thank you. Next up, we have number 2, Dan. Number 3, S. Heller. Number 4, Elizabeth. Number 5, Gabe.
Hello, I'm Dan Edmonds, a member of North Minneapolis in Ward 4. I'm here to speak in opposition of the trial of the Skydio drones. It is with great frustration and disappointed that I am required to be here today to speak out against this. I would assume that given what has happened in the city during our occupation, when we were terrorized, kidnapped, and gunned down in the streets by the federal government, that the use of drones as first responders would not be the best path forward. It is not lost on me that many of the council members who support this initiative were also those who were wholly absent during the occupation and subsequent resistance to ICE, and that many of the members who stood shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors during that harrowing time do not support this partnership. It is also not lost on me that many of the council members who supported the so-called Cop City initiative are also in support of using AI drones to provide somehow adequate care to their neighbors. The same drones, mind you, that the Israeli Defense Forces use to locate, target, and kill innocent Palestinians. These machines are tools of genocide, and Minneapolis must reject tools used to oppress and murder people, and instead stand in solidarity with people with whom we share a similar struggle. We cannot provide more money to a company complicit in genocide. Additionally, why are the tax-paying citizens of this city meant to foot the bill of the Minneapolis Police Department yet again? A police department that, while this city was occupied, sat on its hands while racking up thousands of dollars in overtime that cannot be accounted for. A police department who still has not publicly apologized or taken accountability for the murder of George Floyd and its abandonment of the community in the months after. A police department that cannot explain why it has gone $20 million over budget and then constantly asks for more. No more money to the police, no drones. We are all Palestine. Thank you.
Next, if I can ask folks, it's going to be hard to hear people's names if we keep clapping. Number 3, S. Heller. Number 4, E. Elizabeth O. Number 5, Gabe H. Number 6, Will. Number 7, Everett. I'm just naming it out loud because there's folks in the overflow room that need to be able to hear us. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Heller. I have been a proud resident of Camden and Ward 4 for 16 years. I have also been told that the reason that I should support this program by my councilperson is that it will do something about illegal dumping and chop shops in North. We have a serious problem with illegal dumping and chop shops in North Minneapolis, let me tell you. I have been personally fined thousands of dollars for mostly house flippers and their subcontractors who dump their construction waste in my yard. A drone will do nothing to solve this problem. Nothing at all. That's a 311 call. I have been through this a lot of times. That's a 311 call, not a 911 call. So when I read that they want to use this for emergency response, and then I am told that I should turn out to support it because of regulatory issues, what I take away from that is that no one knows what this is really for, right? They want the drones first, and they'll figure out what they're going to do with them later. And that concerns me deeply as someone who has lived in a part of town that has suffered a lot of police abuse. Every interaction I have ever had with a member of the MPD in North Minneapolis has been one in which they degrade me as a person. The relationship between the police in Minnetonka or Rochester or Duluth is very different than the relationship that we have in North with the police. Yeah, there's no excuse. I have more notes, but I know that we have a lot of people coming, so thank you for listening. Please oppose this.
There's I read names again, so if you don't hear me, let me know. But number 4, Elizabeth. Number 5, Gabe. Number 6, Will. Number 7, I think, Emmett or Everett. Welcome.
My name is Elizabeth Oppenheimer. I live in Ward 4. Everyone with whom I've communicated directly about this proposal have reported that no one has asked if we wanted a drones program for first responders. No one I've interacted with ever even heard that this was being proposed until 2 weeks ago. I'm strongly against the concept of using drones as first responders, especially drones from a company that currently uses them for military operations. When will the militarization of our city's police draw down for good? I became interested in the right use of technology by the MPD when there was growing interest in using body cams. So I went to a public hearing for my first time around 10 or 12 years ago of this very same committee. As that hearing got underway, I heard one officer say to another, "They're going to give us body cameras and we will just break them." I have since read that MPD officers often sought ways to undermine technology or resist its implementation until they learned how they could expand its use and get away with it. Police officers and their supervisors have looked the other way or have made their process of investigating themselves completely opaque to the public. Also, the police themselves reported unease in MPD's own technology systems per a summary of the information collected from focus groups ahead of implementing the consent decree. And you should have packets with some of this information, should have been brought to you. So why would giving even more technology to police be a good idea? The work to implement the consent decree fully should be not leapfrogged over just because other cities are using drones. Other cities don't have the harmful history of police killings of Black people that Minneapolis has. Say their names: Terrence, Franklin, Jamar, Clark, George Floyd. We need respect for our individual and shared humanity, more relational work on the ground, not remote drones in the air.
Next up, Gabe. Number 5, 6, Will, 7, Emmett or Everett.
Hello, my name is Gabe Heller. I live in Weber Camden in Ward 4. So I've lived in North for nearly 20 years, and I've had people dump things on my property, even cars. But the solution is not drones. It's for the police to get off their duffs and do their jobs. Last time someone dumped a car in my yard, I called the police. They shone a spotlight in my eyes and yelled, "This better be stolen or else it's your responsibility." Those are not the words of a policeman with the patience to stake out an illegal chop shop or serial dumper to catch them in the act. That man would not use a drone to catch people illegally dumping stuff in my yard. That man would use a drone to catch me not mowing my lawn during No Mow May and get me cited for it. That is a man who solves problems by killing the messenger. The problem is not that the police don't have drones. The problem is they don't trust Minneapolis residents. They don't trust me. So I don't trust them. And sure, the consent decree is supposed to solve that, but it hasn't yet. And until it has, I don't want the police to have access to drones. And if boots on the ground is just impractical and surveillance is the only solution, I want that surveillance placed in the hands of the community so we can decide what problems are serious enough that sharing information with the police is warranted.
Number 6, Will. 7, not sure. Number 8, Heather. Number 9, Caitlin. Number 10, Bob.
Hello, my name is Will Reilly. I've been a resident of Minneapolis Ward 4, Precinct 5, Weber Camden neighborhood for about 5 years now. In the last few weeks, I've helped my neighbors and friends organize grassroots petitions against this proposed DAFR program. Those and over 500 signatures were emailed to the City Council this morning. My community has been having resources pulled out from under it as long as I've lived there. We've lost grocery stores. By all metrics, we're an urban food desert. We're rapidly losing funding for our schools, especially for the arts and humanities. Classes are being axed. I have neighbors struggling to afford food and rent, and their kids are struggling in under-resourced schools. So when I hear that the city is potentially going to be spending big money on military-grade drone technology to the police in our neighborhoods, you'll hopefully understand that my first thought is, you can't be serious. We just spent months enduring a brutal winter of military-equipped federal occupation and terrorization, and on the heels of that, you wish to provide military-grade drone tech to the cops in our neighborhoods, in our already over-surveilled neighborhoods, purchased from a company that directly profits from warfare and imperialism? You can't be serious. And don't get me wrong, it wouldn't be okay even if these drones are bought from Temu. It's just quite a red flag that you went straight for this particular provider. We need money for our schools, for housing, for grocery stores, not drones for police. Do not go forward with this program. We're not okay with any version of Big Brother. Thank you for your time.
Number 7, Everett. Number 8, Heather. Number 9, Caitlin. Number 10, Bob. Number 7 is Everett. That's next. Number 7. We can move on. If Everett comes back, let us know. Number 8, Heather. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Heather Michelson. I'm a resident of Ward 5. These drones are not safe. 2 weeks ago in Brooklyn, New York, a Skydio drone crashed out of the sky. There's no explanation from the city or the company of why that happened or how. That's the second one in a year in New York City, in Brooklyn City, sorry, that crashed for apparently no reason. And these drones are, as someone else mentioned, used by the IDF in their genocide on Palestine. And not only that, but in October 2025, the Washington Post did a story that Skydio provides information to ICE. And Minnesota state law also permits drone footage to be used by any government entity provided that they make a request in writing. That means anytime that there's a protest that drones fly over, any government entity like DHS, ICE can ask for that footage, and that means any of us that attend will be put under a microscope by people like Stephen Miller, who wants to classify anyone who attends those protests as a domestic terrorist and put us in jail for exercising our First Amendment rights. And most of us in this room, I think, would agree that what ICE did and what they're continuing to do is wrong, and nobody wants to be, we don't want to fund this program or any other program that gives money to a company with offices in Israel to help fund their genocide. Thank you.
Number 10, Caitlin. 10, Bob. Number 11, Maddie. Number 12, Jan. I think, right?
Hi, my name is Caitlin Metzel, and I'm a resident and a property owner in the Victory neighborhood of Ward 4. Frankly, I was disappointed to learn that my council member is the one at the helm of this proposal. This comes from the same council member who was virtually silent as our neighbors were being targeted, harassed, and snatched by ICE earlier this year at the peak of Operation Metro Surge. My main concern with this pilot program is what happens after the pilot. What will the true cost be to our community and our rights? How and where will any data collected about our city and its residents be stored, and for how long? Will it be encrypted? And most importantly, who will it be shared with? And how can we guarantee it won't quickly be handed over to invading parties? How can we guarantee it will not be used to observe, surveil, and target oppressed communities and constitutional observers within our city? Sure, this presentation provided a hazy outline of usage policies, but historically the Minneapolis Police Department have not had a great track record of following their own policies and procedures. Furthermore, we should not be sending our tax dollars to the Silicon Valley-based entity who are aiding the Israeli Defense Forces in their genocide of Gaza. Over 21,000 Palestinian children have been murdered so far at the hands of the IDF, and some of that blood is on Skydio's hands. The MPD already has some drones it can use in the most emergent situations. We should not be rewarding them with shiny new toys after they continue to rack up nebulous overtime, yet still fail to show up when called, and who cannot effectively answer why they so egregiously exceed their budget year after year. Say no to Skydio. Thank you for your time.
Number 10, Bob. Number 11, Maddie. 12, Jan. 13, Brandy. 14, S. Martin.
Hello, my name is Bob Goonan. I'm a resident of North Minneapolis in Ward 4. I'm deeply disturbed that just months removed from Metro Surge, when drone technology was used to surveil our immigrant community and the protests that followed, that anyone would propose putting more drones in the sky over Minneapolis. I oppose contracting with surveillance drone manufacturer Skydio, the same company that sells drones to the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. I am Jewish. I oppose contracting with Skydio, the same company that sells drones to the Israeli military for use in its genocide in Gaza. Minneapolis should not be doing business with a company that profiteers from genocide. I oppose the proposal to put surveillance drone technology in the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department, the same police that the Department of Justice found had engaged in unlawful discrimination against Black and Native American residents and in unconstitutional surveillance practices that infringed upon First Amendment freedoms. The same police that used drones to surveil the racial justice protests following the murder of George Floyd. When I door-knocked in my neighborhood with a petition opposing the Skydio proposal, several people, upon hearing that it would mean drones in the skies above them, asked, "Where do I sign?" One couple expressed their opposition, but declined to sign because of fear of how the data might be used. Drones will only worsen the fear of surveillance that many now share. The sounds of Metro Surge still echo. For those of you considering a yes vote, bear in mind that when your constituents find out that you voted for drones hovering over their neighborhood, you may be held accountable for that vote in the next election. Thank you.
Next up, 11, Maddie.
Good afternoon, Chair, Council members. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Maddie, and I live in Ward 7. I oppose the contract with Skydio and a drone surveillance program for MPD. When this was brought to Council, city departments were quick to talk about the benefits, rescue, fire emergencies, and other logistical things, right? We need to be honest that these are still surveillance tools, and there are huge risks to resident privacy. And when you actually look at the 11 reasons under state statute that law enforcement could use drones without a warrant, I see a lot of risks as well. To collect, law enforcement may use a UAV to collect info from a public area if there is reasonable suspicion of criminal activity, or over a public event where there is a heightened risk to the safety of participants or bystanders. This could 100% be used as a tool to expand state-sanctioned violence, surveil protests and dissent, surveil Black and brown communities, and bring in huge amounts of visual data. I worry that this will be the next course of violence against our unhoused neighbors, who, as a city, we've already decided don't deserve privacy, dignity, or any space to exist. I wonder how this could affect community rapid response systems as we rely on community members to respond to ICE. And I'd like to know how many of your immigrant constituents still living in fear would feel safer with this expanded surveillance through this third party specifically. And as we make these investments in law enforcement, it gets harder to trust that Council cares about privacy rights and over-policing of communities of color. And finally, the connection to genocide in Palestine. The concept of what the U.S. does abroad comes home, or the imperial boomerang, right? This is literally what that means when we choose to use companies like Skydio. We are choosing to use those same tactics and technologies in our own neighborhoods, and pretty soon the testing ground becomes Minneapolis. So I'm asking you not to move forward with a pilot or a contract with Skydio. Thank you.
Number 12, Jan. 13, Brandy. 14, S. Martin. 15, Emily. 16, Sana. 17, Mary.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Dr. Jan Chen, professor of German. I find it ironic that council would celebrate civil rights and then immediately consider more mass surveillance systems. While other speakers today have already addressed how Skydio is being actively used to abet genocide in Palestine, and while as an activist with Mirak in my private time, I rally against supporting Skydio that has recently secured a $500,000 contract with ICE, I would also educate council on the broader picture from a critical security studies perspective. Security is an imagined construct. Jeff Hausmans, a preeminent scholar in critical security studies, describes security is a practice not of responding to enemy and fear, but of creating them. It enacts our world as if it is a dangerous world, a world saturated by insecurities. It invests fear and enmity in relations between humans and polities rather than simply defending and protecting political units and people from enemies and fears. Translated for the layperson here, the deployment of autonomous surveillance drones rests on the presumption that the regular people unto themselves are existential threats. But if you accept and normalize that idea that every single person could be an existential threat, then you have already stripped your own residents of any inkling of humanity. That's what totalitarian systems do, and that's what befell Philando Castile, George Floyd, Amir Locke, Tekla Sundberg, and too many others in Minneapolis. This is the paradox of security within a democratic society. You cannot simultaneously claim that our government, this body, is for the people and by the people, while also deeming the people to be existential threats. The deadly, but that's exactly what securitizing does. And the more this presumption becomes normalized, the deadlier this presumption becomes. And the more this becomes the norm, the more we build a surveillance state that rivals the Stasi, the secret East German police.
Thank you. 13, Brandy. 14, I'm having a hard time reading, but I think it starts with the S, and I don't know what comes after that. And I think the last name is Martin. That's 14. But first, Brandy, 13. Okay, you'll be next.
Hold on one second, please. I'm going to pull my notes up. Hi, my name is Brandy Bennett. I've been a resident of Minneapolis for 5 years, and I live in South Minneapolis in Stevenson's district. I am a privacy and data security attorney. This is my practice area. We are guaranteed under the United States and Minnesota constitutions a right of privacy from the government. Right, we have the Fourth Amendment and we have Section 10 of the Minnesota Constitution. The statute that was proposed that we operate under here was passed in 2025. It is untested in the Minnesota courts and it is untested in the federal courts as to whether that statute is even remotely constitutional. The Minnesota Data Government Act, or Data Practices Act, apologies, is 30 years old. It has been amended multiple times, but it has not been amended substantively in the last decade, except with regard to service data for military members. You have an outdated government practices statute that cannot regulate a technology that has emerged in the last 10 years. I can speak on the civil liberties issues here that everybody else has. We all lived through the occupation. I'm in Ward 8, right? South Minneapolis, half mile from where Preddy was killed, half mile from where Good was killed. We watched ICE come in here with drones. We watched ICE come in here and violate our constitutional rights. Every technology given to state and federal law enforcement has been abused. Last week, we had stories breaking of flock cameras and ALPRs in Florida being used by off-duty cops who met women on movie sets and stalked them through the streets. This will be used the same way. The protocols that were put on place on that lovely presentation we had earlier are not sufficient from a privacy perspective. The Government Practices Act also requires that we do privacy impact assessments for government activities. Where are those? I know at least one reporter who has FOIA'd them who has not received them. I'd love to read them. I will volunteer my time for that. I'll just end with you guys.
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to end on Ben Franklin.
14, Sarah Martin. I think people could.
All right, you have been listening live to the Minneapolis City Council Public Health, Safety, and Equity Committee. They've been talking about this pilot program that they're considering, drones as first responders, as council members review a proposed contract with Skydio, which is a company that will provide drones to be dispatched to certain emergency calls before officers arrived. You heard there in the public comment period, there are a lot of members of the community who are concerned about their privacy when it comes to that and surveillance concerns. Meanwhile, supporters say it could improve situational awareness and response times. We'll dip back into that if it's continuing later in the show. And of course, it will still have to go before the full council at some point. So we'll continue to update you on this as this story develops. Switching gears here, for nearly 200 children for several decades buried at a former Minnesota orphanage, they were largely forgotten. Now, one Owatonna man is making sure that their names and their stories are remembered. Tim Shea joins me now. Tim, thanks so much for joining us here in studio.
Well, thank you for having me. I'll correct you with one thing. I'm not an Owatonna man. I live up here in Eden Prairie.
You do?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Then the news reporting that we had was wrong. So this started a few years ago when you and your partner went and visited the Minnesota State Public School for Dependent and Neglected Children. They have a museum there. It's a historic site.
Correct.
And you were inspired. Tell me what happened on that visit.
Well, I was even unaware of the orphanage there. You know, it's a gem, a historic landmark that everybody should know about, but nobody does. So I had met a lady in Florida, and she, unfortunately, her place was destroyed with Hurricane Ian. So I said, well, come up here while your place is being fixed. And she wanted to go see some of the small communities. She said, what's this Owatonna? I said, well, it's a little town. I don't know much about it, but we'll go see it. And so we went down there, and she was Googling. She said, well, are you aware there's an orphanage there? And I wasn't. So she said, oh, yeah, they've got a museum. They've got dormitories. They call them cottages where the children lived. So we went down there, and we were in the cottage, and she said, oh, there's a cemetery here. Let's go down and see it. So we walked down the path to see it, and I still remember her leaning down, scraping at the headstone, kind of distraught. She said, you can't even read the children's names. And she was right. They were in horrible condition. 120 years, 130 years worth of mildew and lichen and moss. So on the way back, I agreed. I said, boy, that was horrible. Somebody should take care of it. But who's going to do it? And being a woman, she didn't miss a beat. She said, you are. And she said it with such conviction. I didn't argue. So I sent a proposal to the museum the following day, sent it to Ann Peterson. She's the curator there, and she's a walking, talking Wikipedia person. She knows more about that state school than anybody. And we laugh about it now. She thought it was a scam. She thought, well, what's this guy doing, trying to scam us? So she talked to her superiors, and they said, well, we'll give him a call. And they said, well, what is it you want to do this? And I said, well, nothing. This would be my contribution. I'll supply the supplies, the time, and just do it as a contribution. And then I backtracked a bit. I said, no, there is one thing. You've got a booklet there on the children that have died. Now, it wasn't much. There was 198 pages, and they had basic date of birth, date of death, parents, if we knew who they were, cause of death, and the county they were from. So, but that was okay. So when I would be cleaning the headstones, I at least knew who was under there a bit. And
so you wanted access to the information about the kids?
Well, I just wanted a smattering of information. Who is this little girl here? Who is this boy? And of course, in doing so, I taught them about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. I had my radio with them and, taught them some things. But then I got a hunger. Who are these children? So I approached the Minnesota Historical Society, who had inherited all the files from the state school. And when I first approached them, they were a little, well, you know, our adoption laws are such, we can't really give you much. What we can give you will be redacted. And I said, no, you don't understand. These children weren't adopted. They were basically collateral damage. They were almost taken out with the trash. Within 5 minutes, I got a response saying, you're absolutely right. We will do anything and everything and bend over backwards to help you, which they have. They've gone great lengths to give me information on all the children. So I started out with 198 pages of information. I now have a little under 7,000 documents. You know, these are state reports, death reports, death certificates, the probate judge files for putting them in the school, letters from parents, which are heartbreaking, because I went in there with a little judgmental attitude. I thought, you know, how could you parents get rid of your children? But when you read the files, you realize a lot of times it was out of their hands. And I remember the first time being there, there were tissues on the tables at the library. I'm thinking, well, COVID's over. Why do they have these tissues? Well, I'm reading these files. I knew what the tissues were for. Ooh, you know, you're bringing tears to your eyes. Some of them are heartbreaking. Some you just have to put down and walk away from. They're so horrendous.
So learning about the kids became a part of it for you, not just cleaning the gravestones.
It became an obsession. I wanted to know these kids. They were my kids. You know, I have 2 children of my own, but I have 198 more.
I want to show a picture of what some of the gravestones looked like when you started cleaning them. I mean, Tim, those were in bad shape. You can hardly see the writing on there. The moss looks like it's been growing for decades. Do we have a photo of what they look like now? Because, wow.
And that was a better one. That one wasn't the worst.
Wow.
But it's mildew, it's lichen, it's moss.
How do you think that these gravestones fell into such disrepair?
Well, the orphanage went out of business because of new foster care laws in 1945.
Right.
It then became a school for the mentally handicapped, and that went into the 70s, and then it was just forgotten. So I've talked to people down there, and they say, oh, you should have seen the cemetery overgrown with weeds, with tall grass. You didn't even know it was a cemetery. So gradually, the people of Owatonna, there was an entrepreneur that said, you know, we have to recognize some of these children that aren't recognized, because these were headstones. There were 52 of them. There's 198 graves there. So what they started to do in 1905 is, it was state-run. Well, the state-run asylums, they started having deaths there. And what they did is they would put on the grave just a 5 by 10 slab of cement with their case numbers in it.
Wow.
So that's what they started doing with the children too, just their student ID. You know, 6,500, that meant you were the 6,500 child to be admitted to the school. And that was it. So in the 90s, one of the businessmen in Owatonna said, we've got to give them recognition. So they put up wooden crosses. Now the crosses didn't have as much as you see on the headstone there. It had just their names, but at least they were identified. And it left the ID stones there too. So we've cross-checked to make sure all the graves and the children are in the right place where they say they are. But it gave them a little recognition. Unfortunately, they made the crosses with wood. So they lasted about 5 years and started to deteriorate. So then they came up and put a Trex made, the fake wood, like your decking, and put that there. Again, the problem is it's only the name. And unfortunately, we have found about a dozen children with wrong names on it. You know, we have a baby girl pet doe. Well, you think, okay, it's a girl because a doe is a female deer. Well, in research, pet doe is a boy. And that was not pet as in a doe as a deer. It was like John Doe or Jane Doe. So we have to update that. There's a baby Smith. Well, we found out baby Smith is Robert. So we can fix those. The headstones, not so much, because that would entail an entire new headstone. and I don't know if we could replicate that or not. But even with the headstones, there were 2 girls there, sisters. So you have Mary Barrett over here. You have Hattie Barnett here. Now, you know, they weren't respected in life. They weren't respected in death. So we're trying to tell their stories. Yeah, this whole thing about cleaning, it's not about me. It's not about the volunteers. And we've got an Eagle Scout who has volunteered.
That. Yes, you have a teenager helping you.
Yeah, Xavier is going after his Eagle Scout. So he wanted to do the community project, and he's been absolutely fantastic, organizing other scouts, his sister, friends to come and help with the cleanup and straightening the headstones.
So you've brought dignity to these children that were largely forgotten.
That's been the point. I think in the beginning, I told them I've nicknamed it the Lazarus Project because kind of raise them from the dead. Tell their story. Ann Peterson, the curator, has a saying. She says, you die twice. You die physically, and you die, I think it's the last time somebody mentions your name. So we're going to make sure these children's names are mentioned.
When you've done your research and you've started learning about these children, are there any stories that stand out to you?
Oh, 198. They each have a story. But there's historic inferences in there. One, for instance, Rose Larson. She came, and there was no tact in the records back then. You know, one was, well, we were going to indenture them to the farmers, but they were Catholic, so we thought, nah, we better not. You know, and there was another, the parents were Irish and drunks and bad. So the bias, the bigotry showed there. So Rose came in, and in her opening, they would put basically a page for each child, introducing them, the county they were from, the parents, and it gave that information. And then the next line was, Rose is a hunchback. Now, this is 1904. You know, supposedly Victor Hugo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that was in 1853, eliminated some of the discrimination, but there was no tact. So little Rose came, she was 9 years old, and the doctor fortunately said, you know, Rose is above my pay grade. I can't do anything for her. Let's contact this hospital in St. Paul. Now, you'll love the name of the hospital. It was the Hospital for the Indigent, Crippled, and Deformed Children. I mean, you can't get much less tactful than that.
Not politically correct by our standards.
Not anymore. So they wrote to this doctor. The doctor said, sure, we'd be willing to take Rose in. And at that point, orthopedics were basically bone shaving, which I don't even want to know what that is, and body braces. So Rose showed some improvement for the first 4 months, and then she didn't show improvement. So they sent her back then eventually to the state school, where she succumbed to, I believe it was a pneumonia about 6 months later. But in going back and looking through the files, do you know who they wrote the letter to? Dr. Arthur Gillette. Gillette's Hospital.
Wow.
He started the hospital, I believe it was 1898, and you know, today we know it as Gillette's Children's Hospital.
Wow.
So it's interesting things like that.
And I saw stories in there where there were mothers who died in childbirth, and then the father, you know, back then, if you couldn't help on the farm, you know, the dad could not handle.
It was out of their hands.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, women were not totally respected back then too. If the father deserted or was incarcerated or died, it was left to the women. And they would have 5, 6, 7 children. They couldn't work. So what did they do? They had to just grin and bear it and suffer and commit their children. A lot of them not knowing that once you were a ward of the state, you weren't their child anymore. And it's heartbreaking to see the letters asking for the children back.
Oh.
In some cases, they were able to bring them back, but in a lot of cases, they weren't. They were adopted out, they died, they were indentured, and as a mother, that had to break your heart.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
No, absolutely not.
And you have read these letters where these mothers say, I want my child back.
That's where I need the tissues.
Yeah.
You know, it seriously is, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. So,
and many of these children at that time, they were dying of tuberculosis.
the usual killers back then, the usual suspects were diphtheria, tuberculosis, measles, which generally developed into pneumonia. There was one we see quite often, marasmus. Now, have you ever heard that statement before? It's a failure to thrive. Now, that could be nutritionally, it could be emotionally. And that was the problem with the state school. A lot of people, diss the school and say, well, it was no good for the children. Well, the school gave them 3 square meals, gave them clothing, it gave them heat and warmth, it gave them education. Physical needs were met, emotional needs not so much. There were too many children where they couldn't go and just give them a hug and, tell them they were valued. And I think that's where a lot of the failure to thrive came in. They felt like a nobody. And what could you do? There were 10,635 children at the orphanage, not all at once, but an average, I would say, of 500 children there. It's a lot of kids to take care of.
So how many gravestones now are you cleaning?
They're done. They're done. The gravestones have been done. There were 52 of them. And that's another thing. It's strange because they stopped the gravestones in 1905, but then there's a gravestone in 1931. And there's some over on this end, some at this end. Now, I know that some children died of such a horrific disease that they would bury them in the middle of the night just to get them under the ground and prevent the contamination.
Do you think there's some unmarked graves there then?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm glad you brought that up. There was one girl that was supposed to be the first death there, Elvira Hanks. And she's an interesting story. We think her father was probably a slave. He was from Alabama in 1850 or 60. That's an assumption. But she was indentured out to a family in, where was it? Waconia, I think. And they loved her. The children loved her. They loved her. She got a blood poisoning. She was blistered head to toe. She died. They asked her, we lost a child, can we bury her on the family plot? Which they said, yes, we can't find it. He was with the railroad, which at that time, the railroad transferred people around and around. So so that's our next road trip, to go down there and see if we can find it.
Wow. What are your future plans for the cemetery? You have all the gravestones clean now. You've got so much interest because this story has gone public. What are your plans now?
Absolutely. Well, the scouts have been cleaning the ID stones. We've been straightening the headstones. I had the opportunity to go to the American Cemetery at Normandy 2 years ago. And that is spotless. It's like they polish every blade of grass. So I thought, well, that would be nice to get the graves straightened and this and that. I've had a rethinking on that because that was perfect from the start. This is a historic site, so you can't alter it too much. So we're trying to get it cleaned up. We've contacted Master Gardeners in Owatonna, which they've put plans together. We're meeting with them tonight. We're having water run up there this week or next week so that we can do the plantings and water them. My pipe dream down the road, I'd like to replace the fence there. They have a chain link fence with a fence similar to what you have here, the black fence that looks ornate a little bit, sort of like the old cemeteries you see in Charleston or Savannah.
Well, you're doing a great job, Tim. I mean, what you've done down there is amazing, giving these children, these orphans, dignity.
Well, thank you.
Just incredible. Tim Shea, cleaning up the gravestones at Minnesota State Public School for dependent and neglected children there in Owatonna. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. Well, as you probably know, scammers are always looking for new ways to target shoppers and families, from fake Temu deals to fraud tied to these new Trump savings account for kids. So we wanted to get some tips on how to spot the red flags before you become a victim. Harry Moggins, data privacy and cybersecurity expert, joins us now. Harry, thanks for coming back on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's first start with this Trump account scam that we are already seeing. The accounts started getting funded this week. People have been signing up since January, and you are already seeing fraud groups reaching out to families, pretending like they are Robinhood and that they are somehow associated with these Trump accounts.
Yeah, sure. It's been an influx in scam attempts. And the primary reason is because it's essentially free money. So everybody's excited by that prospect, and it's brand new. If there's not they've never seen an email from these companies before, from Robinhood or from this Trump account, the Treasury account. It's all uncharted territory. So people are receiving communication for the first time. And when it's brand new, it's harder to detect and separate, what's legitimate from what's a scam or what's a fraud. So the scammers are having a field day with this right now.
Yeah, it's my understanding that they're setting up fake enrollment websites. So they're creating websites that look like the official Trump account enrollment pages. And then they are sending out phishing emails and text messages where they claim that, your child's eligible for the $1,000, and then you click to verify the account. What are you seeing, and how can consumers protect themselves?
Exactly. We're seeing a lot of the exact same, where there's about 6 million people who have submitted their child for this new account. And with that volume of people, the scammers are able to say, well, let's go to a data broker and buy demographics across the country of anybody who has a child within the specific age range they're targeting. That's a purchasable asset in America today from a data broker. Then after they have the list of people with kids, they can then craft these hyper-personalized text messages or emails pretending to be from Robinhood or from the Treasury Department in some capacity, saying there's one more step. There's a small fee you have to pay in order to activate the $1,000 or to claim the $1,000, or any number of various fake add-ons to what is legitimate.
So what's your advice to consumers? Like, let's say you have set up a Trump account, maybe you haven't yet. If you get one of these outreach emails, text messages, phone calls, or maybe you're even searching the internet and you find a site, you're not sure if it's real, what's your advice?
Don't click on anything, which I know sounds a little paranoid, but there's only 2 official names to remember. If you go to trumpaccounts.gov, the .gov is very important. Typing it yourself, that's the official website. If you receive an email, the email is going to come from a treasury.gov account. That is the only communications they have. To my knowledge, there is no text messages or phone calls coming from the Treasury Department or the Trump accounts team or operation at all. It's entirely done through email and through the website.
Okay.
The official ways. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so look for that .gov at the end of an email, or look for the .gov on a website.
Correct. And don't click on anything that comes in. Even if you're slightly suspicious, or even if it looks legitimate, it's a much better idea to close out, open a brand new tab in your browser, type trumpaccounts.gov, and go through official channels that you control, rather than risking a similar looking but fake link that somebody has sent you.
Yeah, and if you have signed up for the Trump accounts and you get communication, you're not sure if it's real or not, ignore whatever communication you got and go directly to the source for your information. I want to switch gears to Iowa. The Iowa Attorney General is now suing Temu, accusing the online retailer of violating the state's Consumer Fraud Act. So the claims here, and there's a couple other states who have also sued Temu. There's several claims, but one that is really concerning is they allege that Temu secretly collects user data through its mobile app without consumers' consent. Tell me what's going on here.
Correct. So their app was built by the same person who created a very famous Chinese shopping app a while back, Pinduoduo. And that's the foundation of the Temu holding company's name, PDD Holdings, I believe it is. So there's a lot of kind of shady ownership there. And they've actually found Pinduoduo code in the Temu app. So there's a lot of crossover and bleed. And that Pinduoduo app was removed by Google from the App Store for malware a couple years ago. So again, shady history behind it. What Iowa did is they hired forensic investigators and they dissected the Temu app and said, again, allegedly, this is not, Temu hasn't responded yet, but they allegedly said that the app is changing itself and adapting. It has actual code inside of the app trying to fool forensic investigators and authorities to hide its data collection practices from somebody who's trying to confirm if it is or is not. Now, the app is entirely collecting within the guardrails of your phone. So the advice is don't give it more permission than you need. Turn off your location setting when you're not using the app, or it will be absorbing where you're going physically in the real world, regardless if you're shopping or not. And any other setting you don't need, it's better to lock it down.
Wow. Is there any safe way to shop on Temu? Is it just better to avoid shopping with Temu?
So I'm not going to tell somebody where they should or should not shop, but I'll say personally, I would not have that app on a phone with my own bank apps on it. One of the pieces of this 84-page docket that Iowa's prosecutors put forward actually said one of the pieces of data collection Temu did was other apps that are on your phone. So they know which bank you use. They know a lot of things even beyond shopping. It comes down to the data collection, that you are the product, not what you're buying. You're not the consumer. And to answer your question, as far as a safe way, if you decide Temu is where you want to shop, I would recommend going to the website directly, temu.com. That makes your browser almost your containment shield. And a lot of the things the app can track and data usage, the browser will not. So it's a little bit of a safer way to browse Temu.
Is there any way when you're shopping on Temu to say, nope, you can't track me? I know you said on the phone you can turn off location services, but is there any way that you can control them collecting your data, or is that just something that you sacrifice if you choose to shop with them?
Sort of. So you can restrict it with some of the permissions inside of the app itself. The challenge with Temu is not necessarily the permissions; it's the data associated with it as well. So if you're going to buy sunglasses, and you're shopping around, they're learning not only from what information's on your phone and what it can see around your app, but it's also connecting to your profile on Temu and other data sources outside of Temu. They're triangulating who you are, what your interests are, what your hobbies are, and they kind of build this dossier and this profile on you that gets pretty dangerous pretty fast. And one of the also more dangerous parts asserted in this lawsuit was that they're tracking children under 13, which Temu's terms of service says is not allowed, but the alleged AG's case claims they've found Temu tracking children as well, which is now a COPA violation, another federal privacy law. And Temu was recently fined 220 million pounds, I believe, in Europe for similar privacy violations. So what I expect to see here is a domino effect. Iowa is leading the charge, but we're going to see other states follow suit very closely, really putting the pressure on Temu to stop this exploitative, alleged tracking behavior.
Yeah, it seems wild that they're even allowed to operate considering all the allegations against them. Does it make it harder to put a stop to this and prosecute because they are not based here in the United States?
It might be harder to get verdicts and get the results. One of the nice things about the U.S. routing these apps through Apple and Google is what happened in the case of this Pinduoduo app that was connected to Temu with the same founder. Google actually removed the app from the Play Store. So there are U.S. laws that could put pressure on private organizations, Apple and Google, to take action beyond trying to collect damages or a lawsuit that's monetary, which is what I believe Iowa is starting with. I think they're saying $40,000 per violation is their claim. So we'll have to see, but the legal side's a little bit beyond my purview.
Wow. Okay. Any final advice for consumers, whether it has to do with Trump account scams or TMU violations of Consumer Fraud Act?
Sure. The underlying current and the trend behind both of these is data, right? So when you talk about the Trump accounts, for example, one of the things that they're trying to get is not just a fake fee. They're trying to get the social security number of your children. And the uniqueness is that's actually more valuable than your own social security number, because if a scammer can get you to give the social security number of one of your kids, they usually have an 18-year runway to run these scams and create damages and run up the bill before you realize it. So I would say TMU, same thing, the data tracking and the behavioral data from data brokers. Lock your credit. It's very easy. 3 bureaus, takes 10 minutes. Lock your child's credit, especially if you're using Trump accounts. Be smart out there with what you're clicking on, what you're looking at, what your any calls or texts, and clean up your digital footprint, making it harder for the bad guys to track you with services like PrivacyBee.
How do you clean up your digital footprint? Is that just like hiring a LifeLock, enrolling in something like that, or are there other ways?
Sure. So LifeLock's a great company on the reactive side. If you have your identity stolen, LifeLock's a really good way to help get your kind of reclaim any kind of damages or take back control after the fact. Companies like PrivacyBee are the proactive side. So rather than sitting around and waiting for something like that to happen, PrivacyBee will go out there and clean up your digital footprint, find where the data brokers are buying and selling it, and make it harder for your or your child's identity to be stolen in the first place. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin, the proactive side and the reactive side of digital safety.
Wow, so interesting. Harry Moggins, I so appreciate you for joining us as scammers continue to find new ways to try and access our personal information.
Absolutely. Stay safe.
All right, thank you. We are following some breaking news out of Minneapolis today. We are hearing reports that there is possibly a scene at 36th and Fremont in the Fowell neighborhood of North Minneapolis. So right now we just know that there is a report of a shooting with a large police presence. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is also on the scene. We've got a photojournalist on the way. We also have a chopper that is fueling up and heading up to get an aerial view of the scene. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll update you with any new information we have there and continue with some other big news that we're following throughout the day. So stay right there. Welcome back. Well, if you have garden vegetables, flowers, roses, any other plants that you love, start to take a close eye on them, because Minnesota's first Japanese beetle sighting has been confirmed, and experts say the destructive pests are beginning to emerge. Marissa Hsu with the University of Minnesota Horticulture and Integrated Pest Management joins us now. Marissa, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so for people who have never dealt with the Japanese beetle before, what are they? What do they do? Why are they so destructive?
Yeah, so Japanese beetle is an invasive insect, so it's from other parts of the world, not integrated into Minnesota's ecosystems, and it's found all across maybe the southern 2/3 of the state. And it's kind of a double whammy of a pest, where we have adults who are coming out right now and they feed on over 300 different species of plants, but they're also a pest in turf before they become fully grown. So they are one of the most tricky pests a lot of landowners, homeowners, gardeners deal with in our state.
Can you get rid of them? Can you eradicate them?
No, we're kind of past the point with this one where they can be eradicated. We're kind of in that stage where we're figuring out how to live with them, how to keep our plants healthy, so get the things that we want out of our plants, even though this bug is going to be around for the foreseeable future.
Is there any pest control spray you can buy? Is there any pest control company that can help you at your house?
Yeah, depending on what you value in your space, there's a lot of different directions you can take when managing them. I work with a lot of master gardeners, and a way those gardeners oftentimes like to manage this bug is just by physically removing them. So just going out every morning, if you have plants you really care about, with a bucket of soapy water and just knock them off into it is it's a little time intensive, but it is low cost and low, no pesticide usage there. When you are thinking about using pesticides, there's stuff you can use as a homeowner that you could pick up at the hardware store, and you could hire professional companies. It's just important with either route you choose to understand the products you're using.
How can individuals tell the difference between other beetles and the Japanese beetle? Do they have a distinct look?
Yes. A Japanese beetle, they're relatively big as far as beetles go. So maybe not as big as a June bug, but they're bright green, they're really shiny, and they have a habit of clustering together and feeding in a large group. So once one beetle finds, for example, a rose bush that they like to eat, they start feeding on that plant, and then all the beetles in the neighborhood, they can smell that plant's being attacked. The beetles will release chemicals that tell the other beetles, like, come on over, the eating is good, and they'll all converge. So if you're seeing a huge mass of shiny green beetles on one of your plants, there's a good chance that it's Japanese beetle.
Are there plants that are more at risk?
Yes. I mean, they have a very wide range of plants they like to eat, but we commonly hear about them on things like roses, linden trees. They really like grapes. They really like raspberry leaves, but there's lots of different plants that they'll bother.
There's some debate about beetle traps. Do you recommend using these beetle traps, or can it actually make the problem worse?
Yeah, so there are traps available at different stores that are baited with smells that attract the beetles. So depending on which one you buy, it might be baited with the scent of artificial flowers or baited with pheromones that attract beetles, so that origin of the scent. And so when you put out one of these traps, you get this big plume of scent that can trail for over a mile. We also know these beetles are good at flying, so they can fly for over a mile. So oftentimes people trap being like, I'll capture the beetles in my yard and I would have to deal with them. But what actually happens is the trap attracts beetles from like a mile radius, way more beetles, way bigger than many of our yards are. Those beetles congregate, and when we look at what happens when they reach the traps, 75% of them end up in the trap, but the other 25%, it's basically like you've built a Japanese beetle singles bar in your yard. Easy access to food, easy access to mates, so potentially more problems this year and next year with Japanese beetle.
Okay, so do not buy a beetle trap. That is the best advice we got today. Is there any indication that you can look at that will determine whether we're going to have an especially bad season? I mean, a mild winter, a harsh winter, anything that indicates whether we will have a bad season with these beetles?
Yeah, so one thing Minnesotans often like to think about is, what does our cold winter get us? And Japanese beetle, unfortunately, spends the winter buried pretty deep under the soil. It's like 6-ish inches, and it's warm enough down there for them to survive the winter. On the other hand, one factor we do know really impacts their population is drought. So this time of year is the time of year where beetles are laying their eggs, and the tiny little grubs that hatch out of those eggs, they don't do that well if the soil is really dry. So we tend to see a dip in Japanese beetle populations if the previous summer was really dry and droughty. So the last few years, we've had relatively low Japanese beetle populations because we've had some pretty dry summers.
Are there any regions of the state that are more impacted than others?
Yeah, so there's parts of the state where this bug has been for longer. So been in the Twin Cities metro longer, been in southeastern Minnesota longer. So those tend to be areas of the state where there's lots of this beetle. Once you're in the upper half, upper third of the state, this beetle might not have arrived there yet. So you might not even know what bug we're talking about if you're in northern Minnesota, which is good. I hope it stays that way.
Are there any flowers I can buy that this beetle won't like?
There's a couple. You can find lists on the University of Minnesota website about trees and perennials and even annuals that are less attractive to this beetle. That's one way I personally like to manage this bug in my own yard, is if Japanese beetle eats it, I'm not planting it because I don't want to deal with it. So I highly recommend, if you don't want to deal with bugs, this bug in particular, check out the lists available online of plants this bug does not like to eat.
Great advice. I love to plant plants that the bunnies don't like either.
Hard to find those, though.
It is hard to find, but there are a few. Marissa Shue with the University of Minnesota, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day and happy gardening.
Happy gardening. All right. That was Marissa talking about Minnesota's first Japanese beetle sighting of the season. I do want to switch gears a bit here because we are following a situation in Minneapolis right now. Not much information. I'm going to bring in my producer, Grace Henry, because Grace, I don't know if you're getting any more information on this. We have the chopper up. We're looking at this scene. It's 36th and Fremont. Are we learning any new information since this first came across our desk?
No, we have not heard anything else.
Okay.
The chopper just arrived there about 5-ish minutes ago. The scene looks relatively calm from what I can see, like 4 or 5 police cars maybe, and no big developments on the situation.
Okay, thanks, Grace. I appreciate you filling us in on that. Minneapolis police, you could see a couple officers there standing in a driveway, so but they did not look rushed or hurried. So, and we are seeing, you can see a few squad cars there as well. Does not look like they have, maybe that street, a portion of that street is closed off. But we are just watching this scene closely as we are getting reports of a shooting with a large police presence, as well as the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension on the scene there. But we have nothing confirmed as of yet. Again, we are just, all we know right now is that there was a report of a shooting at 36 and Fremont in North Minneapolis, and that is what you're looking at live on our chopper. I know that we also have, do we have our guest from the 3M Open? No? Okay. We are going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we are going to talk with some officials with the 3M Open, that big golf tournament that's starting here pretty soon in Minnesota. They just nabbed a big name in golf. Big news for golf fans in Minnesota. So stay right there. We'll have that interview next. welcome back. Well, in big news today for golf fans, the 3M Open announced that they received a commitment from Jordan Spieth to play at the 3M Open in Blaine this month. Joining me now to talk about this big news is Jennifer Hines, the Assistant Tournament Director. Jennifer, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Courtney. Glad to be here.
Wow, big news. Jordan Spieth coming to Blaine. I bet you guys are excited.
Oh, it's been a wonderful day here. The phones have been ringing. Volunteers are super excited. Sponsors are calling our salesmen, and everybody's super excited about the addition of Jordan Spieth into our field this year.
I have to ask, how did you secure such a superstar to come to Blaine?
You know, it's been a lot of work. Hollis Kavner, our executive director, and Tracy West, our other co-executive director, have been beating the pavement and asking these guys to come and play. And they're starting to see that Blaine is really, such a focus for them of such support, and the Blaine and city coming out and all the Minnesota golf fans. It's been fantastic. So they're realizing that this is a really exciting tournament to be a part of.
Yeah, your tournament director, Hollis, I've heard, is very aggressive in attracting these guys and very connected. Did that play a role in this?
Absolutely. He's known a lot of the agents for many years. And so he's got a lot of input, and we run other events around the country. So he's around these guys a ton, and just, touting what a great city and what a great tournament and what a great title we have in 3M, and all the special touches that we do for the players and their families when they're here. It really is making an impact of why they want to come and be a part of this event.
Yeah, if you bug somebody enough, they're eventually going to say yes. So I love the audacity and the commitment. Jordan Spieth joins another big name, Scottie Scheffler, one of the biggest names in golf. So now you have two superstars coming to Blaine. I mean, talk to me about preparing to host these PGA legends.
Well, it's really been wonderful for our tournament, and just the number of sponsors that have added in. And from a volunteer standpoint, we're at our highest numbers that we've been since 2019. I think we actually passed that number. We're getting close to 1,900 volunteers. We're going to be shutting volunteer registration down this Friday, and it's just been wonderful. But it does make you think. We've been in touch with our concessionaire on a regular basis, working with the Blaine police just to make sure we've got great security, and our parking is all set. And it's a lot to add in, but it makes it so exciting.
I don't know if you've looked at the metrics yet, but have you seen an uptick in sales since this announcement this morning, and since the announcement of Scottie Scheffler, which was a week or so ago?
Absolutely, on both. The Scottie effect is real, and just our ticket sales have gone through the roof, and they continue to climb. And after today's announcement, absolutely, we saw a bump in ticket sales. And what we kind of are always looking at is the amount of likes and shares and things that we get on our social. And we've definitely seen a lot of people are excited about Jordan coming today. One of our longtime volunteer chairman was in today, David Mutch, and he said, he's our Marshall chairman, and from a fan standpoint, he's like, I'm so excited. From a Marshall standpoint, I'm a little nervous in the large crowds. And of course, he's joking, we'll be well prepared, but it just shows you feel the excitement from our volunteers and from the fans. It's really a great thing for the 3M Open.
Now, your tournament has always kind of been up against the British Open, which happens just before the 3M Open, and yet you were able to secure these guys. Do you think you can continue to secure big names with that date falling so close to the British Open?
We have a very strong field, and we've got some more commitments that are going to be verbal right now that we're going to be announcing in the next couple days. So we're on target to be one of our strongest fields yet, and maybe our strongest field ever. So yes, the British is a challenge for people getting here, but I think just the momentum that we've been gaining is really starting to make traction for us.
Is there any possibility in the future, and I don't know how these tournament planning work, is there any possibility in the future that if you continue to attract these big names, that you could move the date to something that would be more attractive to those big stars?
There is a possibility that Hollis is in direct talks with the tour on adjusting schedules and things. That remains to be seen, but it is a possibility.
What makes Minnesota so attractive for these players?
I think it's a combination of they feel the excitement from the fans that come out. You know, that it is important to them to play in front of big crowds and things. And Minnesota shows up for us, which we appreciate. I would say the other thing that really is helping is we go to great lengths to try and make it an exciting experience for the players themselves and their families. And we do, with the help of 3M, we're able to do nightly dinners for them. We're able to do some fun family activities. It's not every day that players traveling in with families get to do something like ice skating. We take them ice skating at NSC. 3M, they're so good with us. They have their 3M science wizards that come to the daycare and do an experiment for the kids and things. So they get things here that they don't necessarily see every day.
I have heard that making this very attractive to the golfers' whole family has made it a selling point for these players. Do we expect that Scottie Scheffler and Jordan Spieth will be bringing their families?
I know for sure Scottie will. I don't know about Jordan yet.
Okay. Anything else you want to share on this big news day?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, we really do appreciate the support that we get, but there are tickets still available, and just go to 3mopen.com for details and come out and see us. We try and make this a fun event, just not only for great golf. We've got other events that are happening for even just the event fans that want to come out. We've got on Saturday night after play, we've got our Swings and Strings concert, which is featuring Andy Grammer this year, and that's included with your general admission ticket. So come on out.
Wow, Andy Grammer. Okay, very cool. The tournament starts July 23rd at TPC in Blaine. Jennifer Hines, the assistant tournament director, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, some big news today. Jordan Spieth will join Scottie Scheffler at the 3M Open later this month in Blaine. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a check of your weather with Erica Morazic. Stay right there. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Well, I have a tea time tonight, so I really need this weather forecast to be in my favor. Meteorologist Erica Mrazek joins me now. Erica, tell me that the rain is going to hold off because it's been raining throughout the day today.
I think you'll be okay because your tea time's in Minneapolis, so it's going to be drier here compared to everywhere else, southeast. But metro and up towards the north and west, going to be a quiet day, pretty chill for those parts. But southeast Minnesota is, if we pull up the radar here, you'll see is in a severe thunderstorm watch. There are no warnings, but there is some heavy rain and general thunderstorms. The storm tracks are generally going towards the east, and then the entire system is going to kind of sag towards the south throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening. So expect some more rain, some more rumblers there. Perhaps there is the chance for a warning, which is why there's that watch. And the watch goes until about 10 p.m. And then after this, it's going to be a very quiet but quite warm forecast, especially towards next week. So after this, it's going to dry out. Seasonal temperatures tomorrow, close to normal on Friday. And then by Saturday, highs upper 80s and then low 90s beginning on Sunday. And then it's kind of a heat wave that we're stuck in. So the 90s stick around into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and dew points in the 60s. So it's going to feel a little bit muggy and sticky.
The heat has just really been plaguing us recently.
Yeah, and wasn't the last heat wave also at the beginning of the week? It was like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think.
It all melds together for me, Erica. I don't know.
I think it's just kind of coincidental that it's almost a similar time period. This one like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
We had an extremely warm May, which was unusual. And now we just seem to keep dipping into the 90s.
Yeah, pretty hot for those days.
And that humidity, I imagine that humidity is going to be sticking around as well?
Yeah, Sunday, Monday especially, those are the most humid, and then the dew points kind of start to just drop off a little bit, so not as oppressive for Tuesday. But yeah, looking to be a little bit muggy.
Okay, get ready for the heat. Looks like the rain is over, and now the heat comes.
Yeah.
All right, Erica, I appreciate you. We'll see you in a little bit, okay?
Thanks.
Go to a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on Fox 9 All Day. I'm Courtney Godfrey. A full day of news that we've been following this afternoon. It all really started when Vice President J.D. Vance made a visit to Milwaukee today. He stopped at the Wisconsin Air National Guard's 128th Air Refueling Wing. He touched on many topics, but he especially highlighted the Trump administration's efforts to combat fraud before attending a Republican fundraiser that was set to take place later in the day. Milwaukee's mayor also invited the vice president to tour the city's election operations to address repeated claims about the 2020 election, and the White House had yet to respond to the invitation. I am hearing in my ear that we do have a soundbite from the vice president's address today in Milwaukee. Let's play that now.
Today, I'm proud to announce that the Federal Department of Labor has started dozens of subpoenas and investigations into foreign fraudsters who are trying to take advantage of the H-1B visa program. Here's a simple principle. Ladies and gentlemen, American jobs ought to go to American workers and not foreign fraudsters, and the Department of Labor is fighting back against it. Now here, I want to talk about something else here. To my right, to your left. This is a program, again, there is so much fraud, or there was so much fraud in the federal government, we're taking it off of the books. But so much fraud, I didn't even know this program existed, okay? So what is allografts? These are the, skin grafts that people get when they get a wound or they get a burn, a very, very important medical procedure, but a medical procedure that was being radically taken advantage of. So if you go back to 2019, 2020, 2021, you see less than $1 billion is paid for these skin grafts. Again, these are very important procedures for the people who need them. What happens under the Biden administration? All of a sudden, we go from less than $1 billion spent on these skin grafts to $15 billion in 2025. And actually, in 2026, the number was supposed to be $25 billion. But because we cut down on fraudulent payments and fraudulent billing, we saved you $25 billion. That number is now well below $1 billion today. That's a simple, good government action. And again, my friends, we want the people who deserve these treatments, who need these treatments, to have access to them. If we spend all your money giving these treatments to fraudsters instead of giving them to the people who need them, then those programs aren't going to exist anymore. And I just have this look, we're a generous country. I love that we're a generous country. My family sometimes benefited from these programs that ensured that poor children would have a bite to eat or would be able to see a doctor. I sometimes had a meal because the American people were generous enough to say that we're not going to let our young American kids go hungry because their parents can't afford a bite to eat. I think that's an amazing, amazing thing about our great country, is we're generous enough to lend a helping hand to our fellow citizens in need. But when your government allows, whether in the state or the federal level, when we allow that money that ought by rights go to feed poor children, but instead goes to fraudsters, we destroy the social fabric of the United States of America. So what I take very seriously as your vice president, what Derek Van Orden and Brian Stile take very seriously as your congressional representatives, and what Donald Trump takes seriously as the President of the United States, is this sacred promise that it exists between the government of the United States and its citizens. That when you pay your tax dollars, it goes to the people who need it, not to the fraudsters, which is why we're throwing those fraudsters in prison. It's exactly where they belong.
All right, you were listening to Vice President J.D. Vance speaking in Milwaukee this afternoon. This was actually his second visit to Wisconsin this year, as it remains one of the nation's top battleground states. The president has also visited Wisconsin. He was there just about a month ago. We are also keeping our eye right now on a town hall that just started with Representative Ilhan Omar. She just took to the stage and started speaking. Let's listen in here briefly.
Able to have Emma, who is our democracy champion, be able to give you all a little bit of a history and a background on elections, on our democracy, what we could expect, what we should get ready for. And then also we have Joelle Stangler here with us with Groundworks, who will be doing a training on how do we communicate this information with our neighbors, with our friends, with other people who also carry the anxieties that we are carrying. We all believe that our democracy is valuable. We believe that fair and free elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and we believe in this country and around the world that every eligible voter should have access to the ballot box. And thank you. Those of us who are in Congress have been preparing for this moment, have been thinking about this moment, and share the anxieties that our constituents have about the upcoming elections, whether it is the primaries or whether it is the general election. We also have anxieties about fascism and authoritarianism, and we have definite anxieties about our president refusing to leave. And because of all the challenges to our democracy and our way of life that we have been seeing, we have put together a task force that's called the Litigation and Response Task Force. In that, we track all of the executive orders that are coming from the administration. We work with outside advocacy groups that are challenging them in the courts. We've also been working with the 22 Democratic AGs that we have across the country. Our incredible AG has come in, more than I can count, to DC to brief us on all the successes that he's having and what his colleagues are doing. As one of the few AGs that's also a former member of Congress, he has an incredible way of keeping us informed because he knows what our capacity is and what we could do to work with him. In that and our admin committee, we are also training election watchers. It is my understanding that we've already trained thousands of election watchers that we will be dispatching to across the country. And so we are doing our part, and I look forward to answering your questions. But now I'm going to hand it over to Joelle to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having all three of us, the Congresswoman, Representative Greenman, and myself. I'm here on behalf of Groundwork Institute. Groundwork is a new organization that trains the next generation of movement leaders and provides political education, organizing development, leadership development. That's about 50% of the work that we do. But the other 50% of the work that we do is we run a very large election protection network with dozens of organizations and thousands of members across the state. And I moonlight.
All right, you were just taking a live listen into a town hall with Representative Ilhan Omar, an open town hall where she welcomes in the public and will be taking questions from the audience. This one did have a focus on election protection, but it sounded like she was going to open up to questions and take questions from the audience. We'll continue to keep an eye on that, but for now, let's move on to some other headlines making news today in our region. Minnesota's Somali community is speaking out after President Trump shared a social media post featuring St. Paul kindergartners, many of whom were wearing hijabs. Community leaders say the rhetoric unfairly targets Somali and Muslim families and is fueling fear and division. The White House has not yet publicly responded to the criticism. The Somali-American Partnership held a press conference on this earlier today, condemning that social media post. And the FBI has added another suspect to its new most wanted fraudsters list. Investigators say Minnesota individual Fahad Mohammed Nur allegedly stole more than $5 million from a federal child nutrition program during the pandemic and has been on the run since 2022. The FBI's most wanted fraudsters list launched June 4th as part of the White House task force to eliminate fraud. FBI Director Kash Patel claims the list has already resulted in the arrest of 2 individuals. And President Donald Trump says the ceasefire with Iran is over after the U.S. launched a new wave of strikes overnight in response to attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Speaking at the NATO summit in Turkey, Trump said that the U.S. would probably strike Iran again tonight while leaving the door open to future negotiations despite declaring the truce finished. We do have a soundbite from Trump from earlier today. Let's take a listen.
They are behaving very badly, as they have for 47 years. And, we hit them hard last night after they launched a couple of, you don't have to know about this, you got stuff on your mind, but they launched a couple of drones and 1 rocket, 1 missile, and at ships, because they were in the strait, which they have every right to be. And so we hit them very hard last night, very, very hard. Probably hit them hard again tonight. I'll give them a little warning, we're going to hit them hard tonight. But we'll see how it all works out. No, I'm not happy with them. It's like, for instance, we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about the denuclearization of Iran, because that's what the war is. It's not a war, it's really the denuclearization of Iran. And we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about just that. That's because my whole thing is not about regime change. It's not about, although I think it's regime change when you knock out the first group, the second group, and now you're the, I think that's maybe the ultimate regime change, but that's not what it's about. It's about, we don't want them to have nuclear weapons, and it's denuking or denuclearization, and I think we've made a lot of progress, and they'll get out of the room. We'll talk about it like we're here. They'll agree on everything, and then they'll go and have a news conference and say we never even talked about it. They're cuckoo. There's something wrong with these people. And for 47 years, they've been the bully of the Middle East, and they're not the bully anymore. They're not the bully anymore. And all we want, it's very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That's what I'm there for.
President Trump, sir, President Trump.
If they did, they'd use it, and we're not going to let that
President Trump.
All right, that was President Donald Trump speaking at the NATO summit. You could see he was joined there by Zelensky from Ukraine. He was talking about the ceasefire with Iran being over after Iran attacked ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. Retaliated with strikes overnight. In other news, back here in Minnesota, the field for this month's 3M Open just got even stronger. Huge news for golf fans here. Tournament officials have announced that Jordan Spieth, the major champion, will make his tournament debut in Blaine, while former Masters winner Hideki Matsuyama is returning for his 4th time. They join the #1 Scottie Scheffler for the PGA stop at TPC Twin Cities later this month. We just had the assistant tournament director on our show, and she acknowledged that this was a huge get for that tournament as they hope to continue to grow the 3M Open, which begins in just a couple weeks, July 23rd. In other news here locally, Wicked is back at the Orpheum for its 7th Minneapolis engagement. Grace Henry, I think that you have seen Wicked when it was in town, have you not?
I haven't seen it here. I have seen Wicked a few times. My mom actually took me to Wicked when I was 2.5 years old. I was scared out of my mind the entire time. I still have memories of it because the flying monkeys in Wicked, they look pretty scary. They're kind of creepy. And it traumatized me as a kid. So for a few years, I really was anti-Wicked. And then I think when I was a preteen, I went and saw it in New York with my mom. But she's a big theater person, exposed me to that. And I'm actually seeing Wicked tomorrow with my best friend. So I'm very excited that it's in town. Yeah.
So this is the 7th time that the show has come to Minneapolis. It has become one of the state's most reliable blockbusters. And do you know what show has sold out more than Wicked? In Minnesota, it's the only one that has sold out more shows.
Maybe Hamilton?
Nope.
Phantom of the Opera?
Ding, 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 ding. I never thought you would guess that.
Okay, Courtney, I am a huge theater person.
Okay.
My mom was a theater major in college, and I was raised on it. So anytime anytime there's a show in town, I'm always itching to go see it. And Phantom's great, but I think Wicked's better.
I just did not guess that Phantom of the Opera would have been more popular as far as ticket sales go. But who knows? Now that this 7th visit of Wicked comes to the Orpheum starting tonight, it opens tonight, maybe they'll surpass Phantom of the Opera. We will see.
Phantom's just been around since the 80s, so I imagine Phantom has been coming to the Twin Cities for more
Much
years
longer,
than Wicked. So, but with the movie and everything of Wicked, I think its popularity has only skyrocketed in the last few years.
Ariana Grande, right? She's the star.
Yeah.
I've only seen the movie. I have never seen the Broadway show. So
oh, it's great. You should take your kids. I think they would really enjoy it. It's like I said, it's a little scary.
Yeah, I don't know if it's for
I
kids.
forgot
They're a little
young.
They're a little
I forgot
young.
how young they are.
Yeah.
And waited like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And then this next story impacts us, Grace, because we do love our caffeine here in the newsroom. The FDA is considering new guidance that would require clear caffeine labeling on foods and beverages. This is largely comes amid growing scrutiny of energy drinks. So brands that we know well, Celsius and Alani, where some people argue that consumers do not receive adequate warnings about their high caffeine levels. When I started working on this show and we met and became friends, you're stuck with me now, by the way, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a Celsius. You guys were like, do you know how much caffeine's in that? I was like, yeah, it's the same as a cup of coffee. No. It's like 4 cups of coffee. I had no idea.
Yeah, 200 milligrams of caffeine.
Whereas a cup of coffee has like 70, 80?
It can have like 90, I would say. So it's probably like a little over 2 cups of coffee. It's all relative, how strong you brew your coffee, all of it. But yeah, these Celsius, Alani Nu, Bloom, all these really big energy drink companies, most of them have 180 milligrams of caffeine plus.
Wow.
And that is a lot of caffeine. And you know me, Courtney, we work together in the office, and I drink those energy drinks. I've tried to wean off a little bit because they sell the mini cans, and I've been trying to drink the ones that are about 100 milligrams of caffeine. Still not great instead of the 200, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to not have heart issues when I get older, and
So what I didn't know is that companies are not required to list the caffeine amount on the cans.
I had no idea.
A lot of them do, but they are not required to. If caffeine is added as an ingredient, it must appear in the ingredient list. But if caffeine comes naturally, so like from coffee, tea, chocolate, companies don't have to identify it as caffeine. They just have to identify the ingredient itself. So say if there's coffee in there. But they are not currently required to disclose the amount of caffeine in the foods. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing. I think they should be required to, because I need to know that when I buy the Celsius can should say, hey, idiot, this is equivalent to 4 cups of coffee. Maybe you shouldn't drink this at 4 in the afternoon. It would explain why I can't sleep at night usually when I think I'm having an afternoon pick-me-up and I get a Celsius from our little market that we have here.
Well, they taste like soda. They taste like pop, but they have so much more caffeine than your standard Mountain Dew or Diet Coke. So it can really wreak havoc on people's nervous systems, their sleep, and it can be potentially very dangerous for certain people who have caffeine intolerance or have underlying health issues that caffeine might affect.
Yeah, so I'm reading that this all was sparked by the Texas Attorney General, who opened an investigation into Celsius after the death of a 17-year-old who allegedly consumed Alani energy drinks before dying from an enlarged heart. So that has put a lot more attention on the case, this 17-year-old who passed away. But yeah, so look for possibly new guidance on caffeine labeling soon to come. And then Kara and I were talking about this yesterday. I know you saw it as well. There was a building in New York City by Grand Central Terminal that was at risk of at least partial collapse. So a midtown high-rise that suffered structural damage They are now saying that it is secure. They are saying that they have fixed the problem and that there is no, I mean, I don't trust it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't find me buying an apartment in that building after this. But there has been no additional shifting since the structural damage was discovered. Temporary supports have been installed. Is this a live look at
Yeah,
the building
this is
right
a
now?
live shot. Sorry, I went away to get this pulled up. But yeah, this is a live shot of that building. You can see the Chrysler building behind it. Of this building in New York. It's been this shot for the last however long we've been on air, a few hours. Nothing's really changed, but I do have a video. I think it's from yesterday of the support beams.
This is crazy. Yeah, play this because this video was captured by a drone. It actually shows the bent pillar. At least one of the bent pillars. Look at that. Look at that. So they say that 2 structural columns buckled in this high-rise building. It is undergoing renovation. They are converting it. It used to be Pfizer's corporate headquarters in Midtown Manhattan, and a developer bought it and was converting it into condominiums. And they had 2 structural columns buckle. This video is just crazy when you actually see that column almost completely snapped.
I just had to pause it because I wanted to get the angle. That is crazy. I mean, it just makes me not even want to go in a building. I am very much like afraid of heights. I don't like looking.
So when they're converting these into residential units and then they're going to put them up for sale,
Yep.
I imagine. Who is buying one of these at this point? Because you could not pay me to buy a unit in this building, even though the developers come out and said, you know, the building's not at risk of collapse. We're going to fix the problem.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll probably be the safest building in New York because there's so much more work and attention being brought to it.
That's an argument to make. That's an argument to make.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure,
I don't
but
trust
I'd imagine there's so much attention being brought to this. But I mean, let's just take a look. No.
Nope. Absolutely
I'm out.
not.
I'm out on that.
Obviously, the bent column will not be there by the time you move in. But
not.
or maybe, I mean, they should frame that and put it in the New York History Museum.
Seriously, this has been a historical event.
This was a day in
I
history.
was tuned into Live Now last night when I got home from work, and they were just taking Fox 5, I believe, New York's coverage of it, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, it was just constant.
They had to
cover-
evacuate a school. They had to evacuate a hotel.
Hotels? I
Residences
know, I
nearby. They
know.
had to close down the streets. So
Yep.
now I guess they're saying the streets are back open.
Yep, streets are back open.
But that snapped support beam. Well, I don't know if it's a support beam. It's some kind of a box beam,
something
steel
you don't want
beam.
snapped.
But I did read, Grace, that they were like adding a couple floors. So it's a 37-floor building, but I read that they were adding floors as part of the residential remodel development. And so I have to wonder how much of that has to do with this.
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on this live shot. I'll let you know if there's anything crazy that happens. But it looks from this vantage point right now.
Well, yeah, everything looks fine from this vantage point, Grace. Everything is under control.
Everything is under control. Just like our show sometimes.
Just like our
Everything is under
show.
control.
I think we're going to have Erica back to do some weather after this, right?
Yeah, I think she's going to be joining us from the weather wall. We've got so many things lined up. It's been a packed show of a ton of live events. So we do have our trending videos and some other talkers ready to go. So we'll see. We'll take a break and then we'll decide what we want to do next.
Yeah, just don't leave, okay? When we take a break, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in just about 2 minutes. So stay right there. right, welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on Fox 9 All Day. Just a brief note. A while ago, we did bring up a chopper shot from a neighborhood in North Minneapolis where there was an incident unfolding. We have been alerted that there was a report of a shooting at that home, and that inside the home they located a male in the living room of the home with potentially life-threatening gunshot wound. He has been transported to the hospital and is receiving medical care. So as of right now, that is a non-fatal shooting that we showed you video of earlier. All right, switching gears here. We have a bit of a warm-up coming in our forecast. Erica Mrazek joins us now to talk about what's happening today, tomorrow, and then into the future. Erica?
Hey, Courtney.
Hi.
Today, it's looking a little bit stormy for some, but in the metro, it's quiet. There is a watch out for the southeastern part of the state, but everywhere else is pretty quiet and rain-free. So we'll zoom in, take a look at what's happening within this watch box. There is one warned storm. That's when you get towards the very southern part of the state, even into parts of Iowa with this warning for parts of Mower as well as Fillmore counties. And here you might find some wind gusts up to about 60 miles an hour and some hail, and this is going eastward, and overall this whole system will continue to, the individual cells will go east, but the whole thing will just kind of sink south into the rest of your evening. And then I want to look at this other area once you get into parts of Freeborn and Faribault counties. That's where you have some heavy rain showers. Now, there's no warning there, but with the heavy rain, there is the potential for some minor flooding. So just something to watch and keep in mind if you're in those very southern areas in the state for the rest of your afternoon into your evening. But everyone else is pretty quiet, just some general thunderstorms just slightly north of that, but in the metro and north and westward, no rain. And then over the next few hours, you'll see the system goes towards the east and towards the south. So a couple more hours of these raining rumblers, but then once you get towards after sunset, it really starts to quiet down. And here's a look outside right now in Red Wing. A couple hours ago, I was watching this cloud roll in. It was the craziest view. There were some rain showers here, now looking a little bit quieter, pretty windy at times too, here in Red Wing. And we're just going to continue to see a couple more clouds, some rain showers and thunder showers throughout the rest of your day in the southeastern part of the state. But everywhere else is looking rain-free. Current temperature 80 degrees. It's not too breezy, but those thunderstorms could bring some wind with them. Outside of that, though, the wind is light. And then after this, it's going to dry out. So I don't have any more rain in the forecast. It's going to be a dry day tomorrow, another rain-free one on Friday. So really quiet with near normal temperatures to close out this week. But then into the weekend, the highs get into the upper 80s, low 90s, and then maybe perhaps even into the mid 90s by the time you get to about Monday, Tuesday. And Sunday, Monday, looking just a tad humid with dew points perhaps in the mid to upper 60s. So it is going to feel quite muggy and even a bit uncomfortable outside for those days. So it's really not the best for outdoor plans. If you do decide to brave those, though, definitely make sure you're staying hydrated and wearing some light colored, loose fitting clothing, all that kind of thing, Courtney, for the start of next week.
All right, sounds like I'm gonna have to turn the sprinkler back on in a few days here.
Yeah, gotta keep that grass green.
We had that. Listen, we love our beautiful lawn, and we want it to look green and perfect at all times. We turned the sprinkler off because we were getting so much rain. But with the heat coming back, I think it's time to turn it back on in a couple days. So
yeah, I decided not to water my singular plant today because the soil was wet from last night.
I remember those days, Erica, when I was in my 20s and I had one plant.
Yeah, just one. I had one, and then I got rid of it about like 2 weeks ago because it died. And then I went 2 weeks without one, and I just bought a new one. I think it was on Sunday or something.
Just look out. It escalates quickly. One moment you're living in an apartment with one plant. The next moment you've got a house, a yard, and a bunch of flowers to take care of.
A lot of things, yeah, to keep track of.
Okay. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks.
Appreciate you. Grace Henry joining me now. Grace, shall we talk about, you love these bear videos. Why do you keep bringing them to me? What's going on?
They keep coming to me. I don't bring them. They come to me.
It's like
we
a
only
running
have so many
joke now.
videos to choose from every day. Pulling back the curtain a little bit. We only have a select number of videos that we can use. If we could use any video off the internet, I'm sure we would not be covering bears as much, but the internet loves bears.
We're trying not to get sued here at Fox 9, so
Exactly.
we can only use the videos that we are cleared to use. This one is getting quite a bit of attention, though, Grace. This video is out of Connecticut, and it shows a family dog, a husky, that chases a bear out of the driveway as it comes charging towards its human brother or sister.
Yeah, there's some sound on it, so I'm gonna go ahead and play it.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, so the dog appears to bite the bear's hind leg, causing it to veer away from the boy, before Bella's the dog, continues chasing the animal down the driveway. The child, thank goodness, was unharmed, and Bella also escaped the encounter without injury. This all happened on July 4th outside this family's home in Connecticut. Absolutely incredible. I mean, this dog.
This brave little pup.
Yeah, he was protecting his child. He was protecting his person.
Such a good, is it Bella was the dog?
Let me tell you, my dog would certainly do the same thing. I know that for a fact. He's a hunting dog. So like if there is a squirrel in the yard, if there is a bird, he's after it. We were out on the boat over the weekend, and he's only 1.5, so he's just learning how to swim. But it's like he's taking to it very quickly. You know, he's a bird dog. And there were seagulls out. This dog, my husband cut up the bottom of his feet having to chase the dog through the lake because the dog was like swimming so far out to try and chase these seagulls.
Does your dog have a life jacket?
No.
You should probably get your dog a life jacket. If he's going out to the middle of the pond.
The life jacket will probably be purchased at this point, but he's a really good swimmer.
Yeah.
But it was like, we're like, come back. And he's like, no, I got this bird I got to chase.
Yeah,
it's like, dude,
that's his job.
You're going to be in Waconia before you know it, okay? So we need you to come back now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Shepherd definitely would have chased
My
off
dog,
this dog.
absolutely not. Would have been scared to death. She's a little rescue. We don't really know what she is, but she's a poodle mix of some sort.
The bear would have eaten your dog.
The bear would have eaten the dog. The bear would have eaten me. The bear would have eaten my boyfriend. The bear would have eaten all the food in the house. The bear would have had a really great day because my family is not would not be the family to be able to defend ourselves.
I think we have unlocked your fears, Grace.
Well, I have such mixed feelings about bears because I love bringing you these bear videos, and some are good, some are bad.
You do. You know what you also love bringing me? Kara, our other producer, loves to do this too. You guys like to bring me all this Gen Z news.
Oh, yeah.
I know you want to talk about this.
Oh, I do want to talk about it. I've been waiting all show.
You have. Jack Antonoff and Margaret Qualley have separated. They've been married for about 3 years. They've separated. Now, if you're like me and you had to Google their names and find out who these people are, Jack Antonoff is a music producer and a singer.
Yep.
Probably most popularly known for being Taylor Swift's right-hand man.
Yes. Yeah, I would say so. He also was in the band Fun. So songs like We Are Young, some nights that were big in the 2010s. He was a part of that group. Great songwriter. He's also really close with Lorde and I can't even, my gosh, Lana Del Rey. But yeah, they got married a few years ago. It became kind of an issue because Taylor Swift attended their wedding and there were a ton of Swifties outside, so their wedding kind of got bombarded by Taylor Swift fans. But yeah, they split after 3 years, and they were a pretty cute couple. One of the biggest love songs, I would say, for Gen Z is a song called Margaret that he wrote for her. It was performed by Lana Del Rey. Such a sweet, sweet song about if you know, you know. Well, sounds like you don't know.
He didn't know. I heard that he did go on the Howard Stern show and say that it was like a movie when they met because he saw her from across the room, and he said he instantly knew.
I know.
He instantly knew. Well, his instincts were off, Grace.
Yeah. Well,
or he's just a lying, cheating jerk.
Well, he is an alleged cheater. He was with Lena Dunham for a bit. And the rumor is that he cheated on her with Lorde, the singer Lorde.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd go with Dunham personally, but to each their own. Okay.
That's your Gen Z news of the day.
That's your Gen Z news of the day, and that is the day for us. We've taken you all kinds of places today, haven't we? We appreciate you joining us today. We will be back again tomorrow. I take over the desk here at 2 o'clock. We hope you'll join us then. Have a great evening.